this has always scared the fuck out of me. So, if I'm remembering this correctly, you and your partner are asleep, and then all of a sudden you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, walk us through that.
So back in 2019, my wife and I were living in Colorado by Evergreen, and it's bizarre. It's like when you lose consciousness, you don't necessarily know that you've lost consciousness, right? Like anyway, I've had my bell rung a few times with concussions as well, and it's kind of like a similar type deal. And so we were asleep, and something happened. That's all we knew. It was like something happened, and I couldn't quite get out of bed, and my wife could just barely get out of bed. And to kind of condense a long story and a lot of questions and confusion and chaos down to a shorter story, basically we were poisoned by carbon monoxide in our sleep. And it manifested in some pretty gnarly ways where, like I said, I couldn't quite get out of bed. And when I could, you don't know how fucked up you are, and you don't know how to make it better because you're not all there. And so trying to walk around was a real big challenge. And at various points, like, she was convulsing in my arms. I was kind of convulsing as well. Blood was just pouring out of my nose. I couldn't walk up and down stairs. And this is over the course of a couple of days before we figured out exactly what was going on. But basically, for the benefit of people out there and listening, carbon monoxide is actually a super common thing to get fucked up by. And so people will off themselves that way, right? Like if you go into a garage and you leave the car running, that's what's happening to people.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of fade away. But the way that it happened to us was any machine that's running on propane or gas or like a gas combustion motor, diesel motor, that sort of thing. If it's not running correctly, or if it's not off-gassing correctly and the exhaust is going outside, if that exhaust starts coming inside, like for us, it was a water boiler that was part of a radiant system that controlled the whole house and the heat. If that starts to fail or not combust completely and off-gases inside of the house, then it can creep up the walls and kind of like go into the living areas. So that's what was happening to us while we were asleep and while we were awake for a while there, until we figured it out and got the fuck out of there. And it was something that completely changed the course of my life and the way that I thought about being alive. And I'm happy to take it in whatever direction you want, but it was scary, dude.
Yeah.
And for me and my wife Allison, it was like something that we still get the trembles about when we think about how close of a call that actually was.
So what impact did it have from how you think about life, like for either like gratitude, or not to put words in your mouth, but
I'm really grateful that we went through some of the psychedelic experiences years before that. So like we went down to Peru for a few weeks and had traditional ayahuasca ceremony, which was not a vacation. It was like real work and real time together that I value so much. And long story short, there was some wild shit that happened, but it showed me and kind of proved to me that we are immortal souls. This is something that can never be taken away from us. And the manifestation of physical reality isn't quite what we think it is.
okay.
And so when we were kind of faced with a near-death experience, for me, going through it, I was just like, well, if this is the end, that's fine, because there's something else going on. And even though like my actual brain in this life was kind of offline for a while there because I was so fucked up from the carbon monoxide, which basically, like the quick study version of that is that it replaces oxygen in your system and kills the cells that it binds to.
Oh, shit.
So it's like the closest that I could explain is it's like having head trauma that you need to recover from over the course of weeks and months and months. But while my brain and nervous system was kind of offline and in enormous amounts of pain and fucked up, there was this other piece that was still online, like nothing ever happened. And it was like, well, if this is it, that's totally cool. And I was like noticing that, like in the face of all of this pain and kind of existential crisis of, am I going to die right now? Is the person I love going to die right next to me? Like, is this really it? Are we fucked? There was this other piece that was like, nah, it's all fine. And if there was anything nefarious involved, which we have our suspicions, there was also this piece that said, like, they can't touch you. There's something bigger going on. Like if you were meant to die right now, you'd be dead. And if you're meant to stay alive and you have more work to do here, then you're going to stay alive. So there's no use worrying about that. Life isn't happening to you. And if you're afraid of something happening to you, it's more likely that it will in a weird way.
Calling it in.
So yeah, I think it was also a piece of like our lives had been very, I felt in control for a long time. My wife did too. We've been really fortunate to be able to choose our careers and career trajectory and the projects that we want to pursue and not. And after that happened, and we both almost died and needed to recover and took a lot of time off of all work because we just couldn't for a while. It was a nice reminder that you can make that space and come back from it. You can experience something that's extremely difficult, and that can make you a better person instead of worse. And sometimes those things that happen to you aren't your choice, right? I never would have chosen for that to happen to me, and certainly not my wife. That was the most painful thing, was seeing what it like did to her in front of me, and seeing someone who you love in deep amounts of pain and not knowing if you're ever going to be able to figure it out. That really, really changed me. And whatever ego I had then about like, I'm in control of my own destiny, I'm manifesting this life, whatever, that you hear some of the people who are like deep into the psychedelic circles saying, it's like, yeah, manifesting happens, but also there's another piece of this. And it gave me a lot of respect for that. And I think it also allowed me to be more open to the space in the future where I don't want to manifest everything, because I want to see what the future has. I want the surprises.
Yeah.
And sometimes life will bring those to you if you think that everything is too certain, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah. It's funny because I feel like there's often times where I'll be in a conversation, like for example, last night, and it just feels like that conversation just becomes the theme of like a few days.
Yeah.
And so this one that we've kind of been on this, and this is what I was talking about last night, is this tension between order and chaos. And how important it is to allow like a specific amount of chaos.
Yeah.
Because again, if you just have like pure order, I do think like the world will break you.
Yeah.
Like, I think maybe it was Hemingway that said it, is like the world breaks everybody, and the people that it doesn't break, it kills.
Yeah.
And I feel like Rogan has a quote that's like, choose your suffering, like choose your shit.
Yeah.
Like he works out like crazy every day and hates himself for it to get through it so that he can control the bullshit in his life. So that's where it happens.
Yes.
Or like, people use plant medicine for that, I feel like, a lot as well. But it's so hard. Like the human experience is so wild.
Yeah.